All right, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right. The time is 7:09 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Bretnall,
Here.
Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Here.
Trustee Poston,
Here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right. May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, sir, I did not hear from anyone.
I do not show any raised hands. We only have staff on the Zoom call.
All right, thank you.
And nobody signed up.
Nobody signed in the chambers. Okay. All right. Then moving on, the next item is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the November 25th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting. Resolution number 39, Series 2024-2025. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Silt to set various town fees and deposits from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. The third item, resolution number 40, Series 2024, a resolution adopting a penalty assessment schedule and schedule of administrative fees for the Town of Silt, Colorado Municipal Court. Item 4 is the renewal of the Golden Gate Petroleum fermented malt beverage and wine license. Item 5, Garfield Clean Energy Board, nomination of Kim Engelhardt to represent the Town of Silt. And item number 6, engineering approval for 7th Street water line replacement. Would anyone like to discuss any of those items or make a motion?
I have a quick question on the fee schedule.
Okay.
How are the building permit fees calculated? Because my question is, I noticed that the lower valuations, the fees went up, but the higher valuations, the fees went down. And I was just curious how that came about.
I will let Director Centeno answer that, other than if she has anything further, but we were bringing some of our fees more in line with our neighbors.
Okay.
And the calculation of those fees when they were done in previous years were incorrect, so we balanced everything out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can also add, we do have a correction to the penalty assessment fine schedule. What I have up on the screen right now, just a little ways down, you'll see under 18 for the misuse of wireless phone. I did give you a copy tonight of an updated fee that we just received today. Perhaps you've seen on the electronic signs on the interstate that as of January 1st, there are fines for using your cell phone while driving. These are the fees that we have added on that sheet I gave you in the yellow. These are laid out by the state as to what the fee is that we will charge, and that will be added with your approval.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question, just because we ask this regularly. Is Golden Gate Petroleum's, are they up to date with all of their requirements and no past due fees or anything like that?
It is my understanding that all the department heads did weigh in and have reviewed the application, and everyone is fine with the applicant.
Okay. So when we make a motion, or if there's a motion made to approve this, do we need to put in there with the schedule of fees we received tonight?
The amended schedule.
Yes, please.
Okay. Any further questions, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the addition of the traffic offense that was presented to us, fees.
Okay.
Second?
All right. Motion by trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented with the updated model traffic code penalty assessment schedule that we received tonight. And that was seconded by,
Who seconded that?
seconded by trustee Poston.
Thank you.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
No, sir.
None for me either. Do we have any agenda changes by staff or by the board?
We do not.
Okay.
None here.
Anything by the board? No. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the water plant construction update. With Dan, come on up.
Thank you. Dan Galvin with Garney Construction. All right, this month's update on the Silt water treatment plant project, health and safety. We continue to manage a safe site. No safety incidents to date. We continue to work well with plant staff regarding and visitors wearing the proper PPE and high-vis clothing, as we do have construction equipment, heavy equipment moving around the site, so it's much appreciated. We continue to maintain our controlled entry, trailer out the front gate, and then keep an eye out for deliveries and folks coming on and off the site. And we continue with our cold weather awareness, and then we may have mentioned last time with the daylight savings change, monitoring daylight as well. We recently did put a light tower on site, so kind of towards the end of the day as we're rolling up and cleaning up, we can make sure to have light out there to keep the guys safe. Our construction progress, so some of the pictures sent over. We continue with formwork, rebar, and concrete on the floor, the slab on grade for the main building there as well. The generator pad got in recently. Under slab plumbing and electrical is wrapping up. As that progresses, we're coming behind it with our concrete. One area left there, the main process area. Schedule. So a few with the weather impacts, a day or two here or there with some of the Monday morning weather we've had. Limiting activities on the site so that we don't create too much of a mud hole. Besides that, again, electrical and plumbing are moving along at the building. Electrical site work is moving along as well. There are duct banks outside of the building. It's just electrical conduit running from the new building to the old building and to the generator is progressing well. As well, equipment deliveries are going fine. Received some additional process equipment that we've got stage on site. And as we get some of the more concrete pads in place, we'll be able to swing those in just before metal building erection. Budget, got the contingency log passed out there. Some changes, just some updates since we've seen it last. Our majority of the dollar changes there for electrical upgrades, and then we continue to track the aggregate or backfill operation, importing good material to put under the building, as well as the infill between the stem walls on the slabs there. And then a few contracts that were written saw some cost savings, and then a couple other contracts we were able to pick up or combine some scope, and so there's a few more dollars that were set aside or to those as well. And then to date, billed $7.5 million for the construction on site and some of those materials that are there as well. And with that, glad to open it up to questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
What is the raw water well duct bank?
So the inlet from the river that goes into the raw water inlet. Currently, there is and I guess in the past, been a couple different modifications there, which now presented a few problems for plant staff. So there's a new duct bank going in that will allow for new conductors or new wire to run over there to clean up the signal between the existing water plant and that pump station.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is
Thank
that diesel or natural gas generator?
It is a diesel,
Diesel?
and it's got a 24-hour fuel tank under it.
What are the dimensions of that generator? I'm just curious. because it looks-
I'm pretty sure I got a picture of it.
Yeah.
It's like 20 feet long by maybe 13 feet wide by probably 12 feet tall.
Amazing.
So and a lot of that, it's a sound enclosure. So the diesel motor inside of that isn't quite as big, but then the sound enclosure to keep it quiet when it runs. Yeah, impressive unit.
It's all very fascinating stuff.
And this is temporarily hooked up to the existing plant.
Not yet.
Not yet. There is on the bottom here a cost line item for that presented to the town
Oh, yeah, I see.
recently. So that's under review and then waiting on a decision.
Yeah, 66,000. That's a little pricey.
Quick question about rows 40 and 41, potential savings based on unit prices progress to date. Has that been reported previously, or is that new?
The concrete is on 17 as well, so that's in addition to. And then no, with again the progress of concrete with essentially like 2 pours left to finish out that slab. Not all of it's shown there, still a little bit on the budget, but that's the cost savings essentially we're projecting.
And we're close enough to final that that's going to be the ballpark, or we'll only go slightly up from there? not
It
the
should
other
go
way?
slight. It'll go up from there. Yeah.
Okay,
So it's a safe number to present.
thank you.
Yes.
I guess I have a question for Joe on this.
Okay.
Is it, I'm sure you're having discussions at the staff level, but is it even worth spending $66,000 to hook that generator up for the next
Next year.
11 months, 10 months that this project's going on?
That's something that we're gonna have to discuss.
Okay.
You know, if we don't hook it up, what happens?
Right.
We lose power, we lose water. Then the 66,000 would have been a wonderful buy.
Yeah.
It's something we gotta discuss.
In the last 12 months, how many times have we been down without power at the plant that caused?
Small power outages, maybe 5 times,
Okay,
just where we have a flicker with Excel or something.
okay.
Do we not have a generator hooked up right now? Right
Not
now,
at the
we're,
water plant.
We do not.
We have one at the wastewater.
I'm gonna be worried. No, I mean,
Which is, I mean, that's the whole reason why we wanted to explore what it would cost to get the generator hooked up to the existing plant in the event that we did have a problem. We have this generator sitting there for the next 12 months that does nothing. It's risk. It all comes down to risk.
Yeah,
And what, you know, if the board's risk tolerance is that it's not worth $66,000, I mean, this is a discussion, we just got the bid, I think it was last Thursday or Friday. We haven't even had a chance to discuss it internally. Tend to be risk averse, but I'm not spending my dollar.
right.
And then, if there is a power outage, I mean, the town's water tanks have supply for a few days, right?
Correct, we
So-
have like 3 days supply of water.
Okay.
You know, that's on, if everything's working perfectly.
Exactly. Yes. In a perfect world, yes.
And you know, you can buy a portable generator for $40,000 and hook it up and then have something, but you're still gonna have the hookup fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's,
And just remember, that 3-day water supply doesn't include an emergency event.
That's true. Like a fire or something
Correct.
like that. Yeah.
And that's, when we're going to have an emergency event.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is having a piece of equipment sit there for a year and not run.
And not be
It's bad.
exercised.
Not be exercised. And, I mean, to everyone, if you've ever had a car and you park it for a year and then you go try and use it, there's usually costs associated with getting it going, so, you know. As staff continues these discussions, I would be of the mind to go ahead and get this thing hooked up, operational, at least keep it exercising for the next year.
I will say it can be exercised without being hooked up. I think that's a typical, it'll turn on every month.
There's still, I mean, there's still gonna be a connection cost, right? Because it's still gonna have to get hooked to the diesel tank, the pumps.
No, right now you can turn it on,
Okay.
the way it sits.
The way it sits now, okay.
The other thing to consider, which we'll probably get into when you start discussing internally, is the lead time that comes with the equipment. There's a transfer switch that I think
Yeah.
is 6 to 8 weeks out.
Yep.
There is some equipment that goes with the hooking up to the existing plant in advance. There is some equipment that has a 6 to 8 week lead time.
Lead time.
What was the cost of the generator itself?
The
Ballpark.
generator and ATS, the transfer switch that's going into the new plant was like a $400,000 line item. So it's probably like a 60-40, so it's, you know, in the neighborhood of a $250,000, $300,000 generator.
So 1/8 of the cost of the equipment to get it connected and have it available to use in the case of an emergency, or to your point, Mr. Mayor, to keep it running
Yeah, which it sounds like we can
periodically.
run it periodically. I'm not a generator guy, so I don't know what the difference is between exercising with no load on it, exercising it with a load on it, if there's any difference at that point or not, so.
That I would have to ask someone with more electrical knowledge.
But proportional to the cost of the item and the project as a whole, this doesn't seem in and of itself like a significant additional cost to layer on, especially if maybe the number comes in, dare I say, lower than 66 in the final. I'm being optimistic, forgive me.
My whole purpose of exploring this or moving in this direction is it bothers me that we do not have any backup generation for our water plant. We have backup generation for the wastewater plant, but we don't have anything for the water plant.
That bothers me also.
Yeah. And these things will happen in combination.
And
Yes.
it's always at the worst time when something happens. It's always. It's Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I'm with the mayor on this. It seems at face value to be a reasonable cost for a good purpose.
There won't be any delays with electrical work that the subcontractor's is already doing
No.
on site to pull extra guys to go.
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine with whatever you guys decide.
All right.
Okay. Anything else in your presentation? We kind of took a little sidetrack there.
No, that's fine. No, it didn't make it in the meeting minutes prior, so no problem with the opportunity to look that over.
How's the heating of the
It's going
concrete
good. 2 diesel heat units on site. So they're low maintenance, essentially just turn them on. We got the concrete or insulated blankets over a couple of for a few days after we pour, or a little bit to thaw the ground out. So that's all going fine.
Go with five?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
I don't have anything else.
Just quick comment, it was a huge priority for the board to ask for the contractor to look for cost savings opportunities, so thank you. We like to see those comments in the notes, that we are going out there looking for those cost savings that can help on the bottom line at the end of the project. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, have a good night.
Thanks, Dan.
Next item on the agenda is the Mine Springs Health Update. You guys like to come on up?
Good evening, everybody. Hans Luckring, Regional Outreach Director by Springs Health, and this is Tracy Harris, who's our Director of Substance Use Treatment Services. So we will provide you with an update of kind of where we're at with detox, withdrawal management up until this point, and how that relates to residents of Silt, and then we'll hopefully have a couple minutes to field some questions.
Okay.
Let me just take it on the next slide. Yep, with some of our opening successes. We also the staff with family nurse practitioners, ORNs, OPNs, EMTs, case managers, and addiction technicians. We did actually have a minor setback in our staffing in November. We lost 2 staff rather urgently, and we did have to lose some days that the unit had to be closed. But we were able to pretty quickly get back up to staffing. It took us about 2 weeks to get back up to full staffing, which in the area I was very happy with, honestly, because it can be quite a challenge. So that is just kind of a little foray into our first emergency staffing issue, and we were able to solve it, which I was happy about. And then we have staffed with some travelers, but as of December, we'll have all local people staffing the unit. So that is also a success for us. And then we did Open Seashore Transport in September, which has been running in Georgia County and Mesa, up in Pitkin now as well, and a couple of other counties. Okay, so this is our numbers as of the end of November. So 84 unique clients. 82% of the clients we've served have been willing to engage in some sort of follow-up. So for a withdrawal management program, that's really, really good. The kind of national standard is about 30%, and a typical withdrawal management program is pretty low. And that really, kind of goes to our staffing model, those case managers and our outreach team, who does go out into the community, and they go touch base with folks. You don't even have to have been admitted. Really, they will touch base with anybody who's interested in substance services. So 82% of the clients who have come through the door have been willing to engage in some sort of follow-up. That 24 of them were directly admitted to residential, which is like a longer-term 30 to 90-day level of care, where they go and stay and really focus on treatment.
And I'm sorry, I have to interrupt on this, I'm very interested. Did you find them a bed? You found them a bed
Yes.
date, and can you get them like priority for a bed date if they like some random person asks for a bed date, or you call and say this is a client who has 2 kids and really needs the treatment?
Yeah, actually,
Put them at the head of the list.
You
Can
hit
you
on
can-
it exactly. So the state mandates priority populations.
Right, okay, right.
And so, women with children, IV drug users, individuals on involuntary commitments, all of those are priority populations. We work within that to get folks into a bed as soon as we can. All of those 24 literally went directly from withdrawal management to the residential bed with no lapse in
That's
pay.
really important too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And rare.
Yeah.
Right, when you think about the national numbers by comparison.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's really, really important service. So I mean, even if you're not like pushing people ahead of the in the line, you're getting people to that service in the first place. I mean, that's
Yeah, and we do have a residential program that we operate in Grand Junction, but we use that one in all the other local residentials as well. So it's not just like a residential, we visit them anywhere, and we really hit them based on, where they want to go, where they want to end up at, and what's in the fit for them. And then 6 clients referred and accepted directly to sober living, and that usually is in a with like some sort of outpatient treatment as well. So this is some basic statistics for you. We've been operating for about 5 months now, so still pretty new, but this kind of shows you Fairfield County admissions the year prior when we were sending those folks down to Grand Junction. So that's what's in blue. So for example, in June, July, Grand Junction withdrawal management saw, 5 and 6 clients in those months. And then in orange is what the Fairfield County withdrawal management has served in Fairfield County. So, the numbers are what we want to see. The Fairfield County residents are using the facility, and the removal of them using the facility that were having the junction previously, which means we're serving a broader amount of individuals. And then, here's our admissions so far by month. Like I said, we had a very steady increase, and then in November we did take a bit of a hit because we had those weeks where staffing was so bad. In December, it's still the first week, but we've already had more clients in the last week than we had for several weeks in a row in October, so I would predict that December is going to be right back up above everybody at all the other months. And then this shows you where our referrals are coming from. So, we obviously do get referrals from the hospitals, not a ton from public safety, but we're definitely getting the word out to public safety, EMS and the police departments and sheriffs so that they know they can refer directly. And then we do have a good number of walk-ins, which again, that's what we want to see. We want to see that folks are coming to us directly. So our hope is that, we're taking the burden off the hospital. Some people are definitely going to go through the hospital, but they don't have to. They can come directly to us, their family can bring them in. And so that's kind of what our walk-in numbers are showing is happening.
We've got active conversation going on with Chief Kite, Matt Groundbeck too. They came and toured the facility. It was a good connection with Andre and them because there was a lot of conversation, a lot of questions about certain scenarios. When do they call Hope Center? When do they call us? How do they use secure transport? So we're going to get on a regular cadence. We just met with the Hope Center today, and we're going to invite Chief Kite to our regularly cadenced meetings with them, and we also are going to have just a regular, just law enforcement only conversation that we set up with Andre and our lead detox peer specialist as well. Every time we've had these conversations, there's just been more questions. So it's a good thing, and we don't have it all figured out, because it's a little bit kind of split up, it's a little bit siloed, and that's what we're trying to reduce, is really having the coordination of care around who's doing crisis response, who's doing not just withdrawal management, but those clients that end up having, law enforcement engagement, and we don't expect, law enforcement to always have the answers on where is the most appropriate place for this person in crisis, whether they're experiencing a mental health crisis and they need to go to the hospital for psychiatric stabilization. Well, SIL PD can still call us, and we can respond with our secure, transport and get them to West Springs in Junction, or to withdrawal management in Glenwood. And to be clear, we had, a backup plan for when we weren't taking clients into Glenwood. They could still call Glenwood. We would still create a pathway to them if they needed detox. Then we would get them to Junction, to our sister detox in Junction. So that was the worst case scenario. We had a pathway to them, for those clients that were needing services right then and there.
Yep.
So, and for people who may listen to this or anything like that, do you feel like for example, the 24 people who got sent to inpatient, do you feel like that is crime prevention?
I think that it has benefit. We've seen that it has benefit on a variety of levels. I would say mostly what you're going to see is, certainly a reduced cost on hospitals giving services that they don't really need to give and that really just isn't in their area. It certainly helps folks with stable housing and to then be productive members of their society because from residential, every client believes residential with a stable place to live and some options for employment and treatment through outpatient.
Well, it's at least less stress and strain on Silt PD, and understanding also from their lens that they have pathways for this person. And some of the lessons that we learned before we even had withdrawal management, when we had the mobile recovery team, was the precursor, right? We learned lessons about how valuable that community-facing group of people was to getting people into outpatient appointments, not necessarily inpatient treatment. Not everyone needs that level of care, but having an appropriate pathway through the mobile recovery team, which is what we brought back, which is absolutely why our metric is an 80% successful conversion of follow-up appointments after someone successfully detoxes at the facility, whether that's inpatient, residential, or outpatient, or they're pre-contemplative. They're not even sure that they, that they want help. But that mobile recovery team, which is part of our program that you're supporting, has the ability to connect with them after they leave the doors, right? Like, it doesn't just begin and end at the doors of withdrawal management. That they can go meet them, figure out, are they ready for a pathway to treatment? Or do they maybe just need some resources to kind of get back on a track of being successful? So that's a huge reason why we have that high percentage, which is more than double the national average.
And realistically, I mean, the answer isn't always to make an arrest, right? So it seems like the police are happy to have other tools to resolve a situation where the person could, arresting them is not going to help anyone.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, and I think we're not good at it yet. It's still clunky, but forward, facing, having this coordination, pulling the silos down, having meetings with law enforcement, our crisis partners, so that we can really get clear and increase, I think, an understanding of who to call when. But really right now, it doesn't matter. There's no wrong door because we have such a tight, which we've not had in the past. We have such a tight working relationship with the Hope Center and their new team, their new executive director. This is only good for the community. Whether it reduces crime, or creates pathways to treatment, yeah, all of those things.
Well, Stacy Gavriel from Valley View Hospital, she's given anecdotes in some of our meetings. The ER is reserved now for more urgent care needs because they're, I don't want to call them false positives, but people who would traditionally have been routed by law enforcement because they didn't know these alternate pathways, they would default to the jail or the ER. When it's the ER says, we're not equipped to deal with this. So it creates a 2 or 3 step problem resolution, even in the moment, versus now that pathway has fewer steps in it. And I'm sure Grand River feels the same way.
Yep.
And that slide just shows you the residents of referrals. So you can kind of see, how many have come from Silt compared to other areas of Fairfield County and other areas of Colorado and beyond. We do get referrals from other counties fairly often, as you can kind of see. And the other does encompass some out-of-state referrals as well. There are some folks that come in as visitors to Fairfield County and then end up in withdrawal management. There are also some that come in for specific treatment, like at Jaywalker, and then need the service as well, and then return to treatment. So that's kind of what you're seeing in the other category.
So if you can't see that, gets a little funny with the color. It's 6 total through November.
Yeah.
Silt residents.
And we don't want to win this. This is not a competitive environment. We do not want to be the top
Well,
bar on this chart.
substance abuse is real, and there's a stigma that we could work on. And if people, if our residents are getting the help they need, I think that's a
Absolutely.
positive thing. So I mean,
It is. And then this is just to kind of show you we do track insurance. This is part of how we are getting paid, making the service sustainable. We right now have a majority of Medicaid clients, which is good, and through payment, Medicaid pays for the service. We also can get payment from private insurers. Right now we're working on getting contracts with each of them to make sure we're getting the best rate. So they'll all pay because it's an urgent service, so that is nice, but contracts will help us get even better rates with them, so that's kind of what we're going after as our next steps.
Do you have any preliminary data on recidivism?
We do, in the top slide there, it kind of shows the admissions, but then also readmits. It was the second data slide, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you can kind of see, I mean, there is definitely a small percent of recidivism. There always will be. Sometimes it does take a couple of times through to then get that person to a more permanent solution, or for them to really be ready to commit to a more permanent solution, and it is something we're tracking.
And each one of those are opportunities for our peer specialists or our case managers to really either revisit, to begin that conversation about the hope of recovery, and at least having some familiarity and some trust that they know that there's a place for them to come get help. So, but yeah, we will have those high utilizers, frequent flyers for sure. But I think that the system that we're building is going to start to create some more of those opportunities for us to talk about the possibility of recovery, especially with those people in our professional core of withdrawal management staff that have that lived experience, right? And they're not a volunteer discipline. They're a paid professional discipline on our interdisciplinary team that can talk about the hope and the possibility of recovery like none of us can. It's just different. So.
and also if you think about what jail can do to someone, and it often will make them a worse criminal. So I would much rather see a program like this where someone goes in multiple times before they figure it out versus going to jail, which they may never figure it out. They may just end up institutionalized.
And we have, I mean, there's pathways there as well. There's avenues following jail. We have a peer recovery coach position that's not attached to this, but is positioned kind of between our outpatient services and our withdrawal management services that can reach into the jail and have those relationships so that we know when people are coming out, so that we have those connections, whether they're going to need withdrawal management or just outpatient substance use treatment support. It's really building that safety net as a whole. And this is, as we've always talked about, this is not the end-all, be-all, cure-all, fix-all. This is a necessary part of the continuum.
So this is kind of a little blurb about our sister transport. Like Honda said, this is really a work in progress. We're staffed right now for sister transport up in Linwood, I think 6 days out of 7, for, daytime hours up to 10 p.m. and then in Grand Junction too. And they can mobilize from either area. So they can mobilize from Mesa County up here and vice versa to pick folks up. And it's just something we're trying to build capacity for. If we can show the value of it, we can kind of spread that out. I'm sure our hope is to get round the clock services eventually for sister transport. But it does allow us to move folks who need to be moved. So if somebody starts in withdrawal management and they need the psych hospital, we can transfer them down. If somebody starts in Valley View and they need withdrawal management, we can get them to withdrawal management. We can move them anywhere from any hospital or withdrawal management level of care.
Which, again, lessens the stress on law enforcement, which is usually going to be that default person to transport people, especially when they're not sure where they need to go.
This is just information about why a medically monitored level of care is useful. And I I think that we've probably talked to you all about this before, but, high level, the state and the feds are really moving away from a social model, which is what the before management, like I was here 10 years ago, was, and really moving to the medically monitored level because it is safer. It really is the best treatment, especially for alcohol and opiate withdrawal. Those folks really do need medications and evaluation by nursing staff and providers to be safe, and so that's what we're able to offer. This is what allows us to keep people out of the ED and to, because we can do our own medical clearance, we can do our own medication. We don't need the hospital to supply us with those things. And then lastly, kind of our budget plan. You'll have a copy of the budget, and I'm sure that you have noticed we are still kind of in the red for this year. We know that, and we're planning for it. This is kind of our plan to work on that. We're really getting our communication and outreach out there. That's what Hans and Andre are working so hard on right now. Because we are seeing folks come from a lot of different communities. We are going to be targeting some of those other counties and asking them, since they're sending people our way, if they would like to participate in helping to fund it. And then we're also working on insurances, like I said, getting those contracts with them. And our census, which is slowly on the rise, and this first year, I don't think that we'll realistically, be at a place where that census will sustain the budget by itself, but our hope is that in the next few years, we could get there.
Does this budget figure get impacted at all by the recent change in management?
No.
Like, should we be revising this in 30, 60, 90 days based on that? Larkin Health coming into the fore.
I think that we'll have a lot more clarity on that in the coming weeks. I spoke, just a couple of minutes ago. They're really coming in this week with community-facing teams, the outpatient teams, some of the residential, programs. And so, and as I've said before, I'm happy to come in front of council and provide updates, even if it's 5 minutes, just to say, yes, this is exactly what we had anticipated. Their message of not only being interested in West Springs Hospital, but also committed to the communities that we are serving with our community-facing programs and our outpatient programs and our residential programs is also their priority. So that's what we know as of right now, but they're still, it's a management agreement at this point.
Would you mind just giving the other members of the board as well as the public sort of a Cliff's Notes, 90 seconds?
Sure.
Because they're may not be as involved as I am or want to be.
And yeah, so significantly, and we had kind of been pretty public about some of the challenges that we have with our inpatient West Springs Hospital, our inpatient psychiatric hospital, which is the only inpatient psychiatric hospital between the Front Range and Salt Lake City, and serves a lot of Garfield County residents. Was having financial issues earlier, and this year, and we were really asking for the community support around that. Got community support, got regional support, and a lot of national attention because we serve 10 counties on the western slope, and we have that special hospital asset. So there was some conversations that came from that, some of those struggles. Larkin Health System is a large health system that is based out of South Miami, Florida. They specialize in coming in and, whether you call it rescuing inpatient psychiatric hospitals or investing in them and, providing best practices, probably a little more like the latter. This is what they do. They're familiar with our business. They're also familiar with outpatient behavioral health businesses, which is also part of what they do. We have a management agreement with Larkin Health System. Our former CEO, John Sheehan, is no longer with the organization. The CEO from Larkin Health System is Dr. Nicholas Torres. He is our current interim CEO. He is going to come meet with myself and some of the other Garfield County team tomorrow. He is going to introduce himself to some of the nonprofit and human services leaders of Garfield County. I invited him to come and introduce himself and Larkin Health System to Garfield County at the Human Service Commission on Wednesday morning. I can certainly forward that to Jim. I told Derek that I'd invite him as well. It's a Zoom, it's a virtual only meeting. It's a 15-minute intro that can give you a little bit more, I think, sense of who they are other than what I've just described. I view this as only a positive, as someone who is invested in, the community and Mind Springs. I think that their resources are significant, and I think that they're serious about merging and acquiring us. That will obviously come in the future, in theory, in theory, a very short amount of time. I think we'll have a lot of information about what does this mean for us, what does this mean for the Community Mental Health Center that services Garfield County. I will be able to speak a lot more clearly about this in the coming weeks. So I'm happy to come talk to the council and provide updates whenever that's helpful.
It's worth noting that the financials for the existing facilities that they manage are all strong and have been for a while. So they know how to do what they're coming here to do. It's really, for them, I'm guessing or thinking it's about operational efficiencies, not impacting the quality of care in a negative way.
Yeah.
So when you say acquiring us, when you build yourself to a certain level, what does that mean exactly? Are you guys functioning currently? Like, I didn't understand that part. I just want to understand it better.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
When you said we build ourselves high enough so they can acquire us, what do you mean exactly? I think you were talking about some of the out-of-state type of, no, so this is only Colorado leadership, Colorado board, and it's supposed to stay that way? Is that the forecast?
Well, I mean, John Sheehan, CEO, stepped aside, and our chief operations officer, Amy Cooper, also stepped aside. So, and I anticipated that just because the executive team is kind of, I think, the first conversations that they're having. I think that they're going to be looking for redundancies as well. But I also, if I'm paying attention, think that they're smart enough to know that they can't come in here as a South Florida health system and pretend to know how to do business in Garfield County or the Western Slope without people that, hold the relationships and the experience here. I don't get that sense at all. I think that they're going to be looking for efficiencies that they've already figured out and bring those best practices here and then balance that and temper that with what we tell them is important about how we do business in Western Colorado.
And operationally, I know we are kind of out of time. It would be,
Sorry.
Are the executives making decisions, but also served by a board? What's the operational?
So the board is in negotiations with the management group at Larkin. That's our existing board here is the ones who are really making all of these decisions about the future and how to pull them in the right way and what we do well already.
Mm-hmm. And that's potentially to help offset some of the costs that you're foreseeing, the operational costs that I see a deficit like right now. Based on the forecast that you guys have?
Like for what we do from a current situation, even though we've got not quite in the black where we want to be with withdrawal management, a lot of our other outpatient and community-facing programs that we've always had here in Garfield County have been in the black. Mm-hmm. And it's really, the opportunity, I think, lies with the hospital, and that'll provide, which is really their expertise at Larkin Health System, is making inpatient psychiatric hospitalization profitable and high quality. That's what they do. So I'm hopeful that they're going to bring that expertise in. And I mean, again, I am eager to have my conversations with their senior leadership and management team over the next couple of weeks. so that we have some more clarity to provide to the council.
And all my questions, where they're coming from, is definitely from that point of view. It's a great resource that we have, a go-to place from the police standpoint and from the community standpoint, hospital standpoint, that can mediate drug abuse, mental illness, and let's get everybody the resource. I agree with the concept. I love the concept. I think it's very much needed. Hence, I know it's needed. When I look into healthcare against profitability, I'm careful about who's at the top and who's making the decisions. And are we looking at the bottom line, or are we looking to serve? Especially if we are dealing with such a, a sensitive point of society that we definitely want to keep those people, to a better place. So questioning profitability when it comes to healthcare, it's something that's very tender to me. So, that's where I was coming from when I was making those questions.
I agree with you, 100%.
There you go.
I share the concerns. So I'm hoping that we have the good messages that are continue to support our mission and how we've done business, and just having some more resources and best practices at our disposal. That's what I'm hopeful of.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just gonna ask, last year I think we gave $2,000. What are you guys asking for this year?
The same. We're not asking for any extra money, just the continuation of the MOU that we are
Okay.
agreeing to. Yep.
All right, thank you.
So I have two questions. One of them you guys know is probably coming anyway, because I ask it all the time. How many out of the 84 clients, so 82% went to follow-up case services? How many, so that's roughly 68 clients. How many of those 68 clients did business with Mind Springs?
I don't know if we have that data tonight.
Okay. Since this whole project has started, my concern's always been that the detox center is
To feed it.
to feed
Yeah.
Mind Springs, so that number's pretty important to me.
We can get you that information.
Yeah.
And we can get you that. And
Okay.
it is, I know for a fact it's not just Mind Springs, so I
Right.
hope you'll be happy with the results of that.
I hope yeah, that's my thing, is I think the detox is a great facility, it's definitely needed, but and I'm gonna equate it to RAFTA. I'm not a fan of funding RAFTA. Why aren't we funding taxi services and Ubers? Funding the big guy at the top to take care of everything on the way down just isn't the way I like to do things.
Totally agree. And I know my staff, they're passionate about the services. They want to get these people to wherever they will be successful. So I'm happy to get you that info.
Okay.
Which, and some will be us,
Yeah,
as
some
as
will
the
be.
safety net.
There are some, that are gonna go there, which
And-
isn't,
And with the
Isn't a problem,
landscape
yeah.
changing, with the Medicaid roll-offs, which is really the reason why that budget looks like that. Looking at potentially 30% less of Colorado, residents that were previously Medicaid eligible are no longer. It's changing who can choose to serve these clients, especially if they're just now uninsured. Figuring out a way to provide charitable care and have enough assets elsewhere to do that. It's a struggle. I think to some of the other earlier conversations about, how do we get people into treatment? We'll be the recipient of some of that for sure. But our peers and our case managers really are skilled at making sure that we just get people connected to outpatient follow-up services that they need.
And I'm sure Mind Springs has a great resources for that, but I think we have a valley full of other resources, so I just want to make sure that everyone's getting a piece of the pie, I guess, is one way.
I
I
agree.
mean, unfortunately, it's a bad pie to eat, but yes, hopefully everyone's getting a piece of that pie.
Yeah, we can get a little bit clearer landscape of where those follow-up appointments are for you. I know you were concerned about that.
And then the second one is, you guys are in here asking for a $2,000 donation, while a million revenue generating company is looking at partnering or acquiring you guys. A company that big is only going to look to acquire you guys because there's a profit into it. So asking our citizens to support a profit generating business, I'm not on board with.
I would say that, I would say, we're not profit generating yet.
Right.
And I mean, the hope is to be sustainable and to be where we would be able to sustain ourselves for sure. I mean, the MOU itself is only for 5 years, and if we should get there in 5 years, I'd be thrilled. I'm just saying. I don't know that we're going to be there this year,
Yeah.
even if Lotan obtains us.
Well, I think my response to that is that a $2,000 annual contribution at a point where we've already served 6, SILT residents within the first 5 months is an incredible return on investment for providing needed services to people that are struggling with substance use that happen to be residents of SILT.
And I agree with that in the operating model that you have now. Once this other company comes in,
We may have, we may have a very different conversation
yeah,
in the future.
in the future, yeah.
So that was why I was asking about Larkin Health, having done some research in advance of this meeting. I don't know what that M&A looks like either. And we may not know, speaking for the communities as a whole in general, we may not know the answer to that for 6 months.
Right.
$2,000 for even 6 months of usability by our citizenry seems a small price to pay. And then next year, this math changes, because then it's maybe some Larkin reps sitting here as well, and the whole dialogue changes, and then we revisit that. But the way it is now is the way I have to assume it's going to be for at least the next 180 days. Just the nature of these types of M&As, they take a substantial amount of time, and while the psychiatric aspect of the business may be viable or profitable, this one's projected to have nearly $750,000 of a loss.
Right.
So if they're buying it for this, they're backing the wrong horse.
Yeah.
I think it's worth investing in having been a party to sitting in on the conversations with other stakeholders within the community. I don't think its value is fiscal as much as it is treatment-based for us as a community, and I'm okay with spending $2,000. And I approach this as a deeply cynical person, and I've seen, having been a party to it as they went through the construction and the delays, I was always the data guy. When is this damn thing gonna open? When are you gonna talk to the police? Literally the biggest cynic in the room. I'm okay with it, with the current model, but I agree with you completely. Next year, this is a very different conversation, because now it's a for-profit company. So that's gotta change our modeling.
Okay. I have no further questions. Nobody?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And I'm on board with the $2,000 for this year, but I do agree that in the future, it's going to have to be a big discussion.
Agreed.
Okay. Do you guys have any other things you want to throw out there?
No, we just appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time tonight. Appreciate the questions. And we'll be back in front of you when it makes sense.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is the second reading of ordinance number 11, series 2024. An ordinance of the Town of Silt, Colorado adopting chapter 5.34 and chapter 17.08.363 and amending land use regulations in chapter 17.13.020 to the Silt Municipal Code to include natural medicine healing centers, natural medicine cultivation facilities, natural medicine products manufacturing facilities, and natural medicine testing facilities within the state, or within Silt, the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado. And I will turn this over to Clerk McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just taking the reins on this and giving Lori the night off. There haven't been any changes to this ordinance after first reading, and I really don't have anything to add, so I would answer any questions if you have anything.
Was just confusing for me on the letter from the attorney. As a result, it is possible that permitting natural medicine as a special use other than as a use by right would be deemed unlawful. So it just got confusing the way I was reading this. So it would be deemed unlawful, or it would not if we do, it doesn't read clearly to me. Just rather than a use by right would be deemed unlawful.
So we, thank you for noting that. We did reach out to other communities within the municipal league, and we would not be the only ones regulating the natural medicine as a special use. But the grounds by which a denial can be issued are pretty narrow. So we can regulate location, we can regulate opening hours, we can regulate other traditional zoning criteria, but the way that the state law is drafted in terms of not adding an undue burden to the operations or the exercise of these businesses means that, as we might otherwise look to in a special use review where we would be more broad in the considerations that we would make or consider, these will be pretty narrow.
And that was the discussion that we had last time about it, was that the advantage of keeping a special use was it just gave us more information with the individual. In almost every case wouldn't have the option of denying the special use, but yet by them going through that process, it just gives us more information, and thus the public more information on what's going on.
And Nicole was saying.
And they wouldn't just slide in and sneak in somewhere and not know what, and all of a sudden, wait, where'd this come from?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And the state laws may change.
This is true.
Right, by the same token, they did recently to get this over the finish line. They could change in 2-4 years. This is our placeholder that gives us an opportunity to review.
Correct, especially if different employees may be reviewing those licenses and then suddenly it doesn't get in front of, the board, and, we just completely lose track of how many businesses are out there, and it's just not coming in front of us to look at it at least. Just to help monitor, especially since it's such a new state regulation, so that it's imposing something upon the municipalities and not allowing us to have much choice and say, so at least the minimum we can do is keep an eye on it.
And just again to clarify, this is a preemptive inclusion in our municipal code. We do not have anybody that has approached the town to operate a business, but because the potential is out there, we felt it was necessary to get something into the code so that we had at least some review criteria.
Going with our population, the population area, I would anticipate a huge influx of centers wanting to come to Silt, Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think that Jim's correct. We're looking to be proactive here. We're looking to exercise the authority that the state has given us space to exercise at the current time. Special use permit does mean that you as a board will be apprised if and when such a business requests to operate within town limits.
I'm going to take the advice of the town attorneys and vote no on this.
Okay.
I'm not sure we're recommending voting no, but
Well-
I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
gonna say, I think I'm gonna take the advice of the town attorney and vote yes.
Wow.
We're hearing different things, I guess.
Double dealing,
Well,
what's going
I
on
think,
here?
I think the confusion comes in is that there is a modicum of exposure because we are creating this as only a special use across all our zoning districts. It's not a use by right in any of our zoning districts. Somebody might globally challenge that to say that we're being too restrictive.
I'm not too worried about that. What you will see, however, if and when we get an application, will be some strongly worded language in a staff memo saying the information or kind of criteria that falls under your purview is pretty narrow in this instance. I'm not worried about us being opened up to some kind of global lawsuit. Nobody's come in, applied for a permit, been denied when they think they should have been approved for it. This really is a situation where if and when an applicant comes, that we will be reminding you that your purview is fairly narrow in that circumstance.
Yeah, our only exposure would be if we improperly denied a license or a permit.
Correct.
Craig, if you unduly burdened
Yes.
a potential operator from operating within the community, and we'll cross the bridge as to what exactly might be in or out if and when we actually get an application.
Well, and I feel like I mean, I don't want anyone to think I'm advocating for this kind of thing. I feel like the possibility is there, and if they come and apply in this town and we don't have this, then we have no oversight. And I think the way they're drafting it to where we have as much control as they can possibly give us without it being made illegal. So I think I want to vote yes on it because I feel like it gives us as much control as a town and as a board as we can get without, if we made it any more restrictive, then someone would come challenge it and get it tossed out, and then we're worse off. You know what I mean? So I guess my thought is like, we have to figure out how to protect ourselves as a town. And so I guess to me, it seems to make sense with what we're facing.
Another risk that I foresee would be, hey, there's this board and there are priorities over time, that this constantly is brought up through our legal team to different boards that turn over, because then the liability would potentially open up to, if that's not being looked at on the line items and an application does get denied. So just thinking 20 years ahead, or, because we are making the rules now, we are very aware, hey, may serve a term, 2, 3, how about 20 years from now, 25, and suddenly this board opens this up, and then, so that would be the only risk that I foresee as we rely on our legal team on those types of reviews and application, but it does open up, a little bit of that risk to have something denied down the line and being in trouble. But I still like better if you wait for now, since this is a new regulation, to still be able to have the oversight.
It's a mechanism for awareness.
And
Just to make
maybe-
sure that this body is made aware of these, regardless of what we choose to do or have the capability to do, as we're informed by the town attorney. This is a mechanism to ensure we're at least made aware of it.
Then it also gives our citizens the opportunity to be as aware as possible.
Absolutely, 100%.
Maybe review it after 5 years. I don't know. Just-
Well, the laws may change in the state 3 times between now and then. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the beauty of our government is it
We're
can always
reserving
change.
the right of first refusal. We just want to be made aware.
Okay.
But then, if there is an application, it would go in front of P&Z either way.
It's a
So,
special
we
use.
still would know about it.
Not if it was used by right, it wouldn't go to P&Z.
That's why,
Yeah, that's the
that's why we
difference.
want special.
But I
use.
just,
So again,
way.
it's written right now, it will go in front of P and Z
okay,
and then ultimately come here.
and then come
If there
here.
was a use by right, it wouldn't necessarily go in front of P and Z.
Okay,
It
gotcha.
would
Okay,
it
so
would
I just wanted clarification on that, because, I trust P&Z to make it.
It would only
Made
go
a
to
decision.
P and Z if they were building a new facility and we're going through commercial site plan review, which is unlikely.
Okay.
So otherwise, if they just rented a space in town and pulled a business license, they could begin if it were a use by right. And again, there are many communities handling this as a use by right, essentially saying, this is a medical facility. And they're just saying, if it's zoned for medical facilities, this business can operate here. Again, we're not alone in regulating this as a special use. There are other communities doing so, but
But they're not selling any products. They're selling basically a medical service, if you will. I mean, you can't go in there and buy whatever and walk out the door with it.
correct.
That's right. Not at the moment.
I think you should be written a prescription.
I don't believe so.
It says you have to use it
It has
on
to be
site.
administered on site.
It
is
has
what
to be
the thing
administered
said.
on site,
That's what it is.
at least the way the law is written.
The way the law is
currently.
written,
I think
Now,
we
I have a
asked
different
about that
opinion
at one
about
of
it
the.
if it was a store where you could actually go and get stuff, but.
I think we talked through that at our last
Yeah.
meeting about this.
I don't think it would be as protected as they're really protecting this right, you know, and it's not like going to a store and buying, you know what I mean? I think that's why it's so protected, is because it's a
Yeah,
medical
yeah.
treatment that they're going to administer. So,
Okay. Any further comments before I open up the public hearing?
None here.
All right. The time is 8:20 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing for ordinance number 11, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
I do not show any raised hands.
thank you. Would the member of the public like to speak to this agenda item?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, the time is 8:21 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 11, series 2024 as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Brittenall to approve ordinance number 11, series 2024 as presented, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Seifert?
Aye.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt?
aye.
Trustee Clausen?
Nay.
Trustee Brittenall?
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Motion passes 6-1, yep. Okay. Next up then is resolution number 41, series 2024. A resolution to adopt the town of Silt's budget for calendar year 2025, appropriate funds and levy property taxes. And I will turn this over to Manager Mann.
You have a series of 3 resolutions this evening, the first of which deals with the overall budget for the town, second of which deals with the Housing Authority, and the third of which deals with the Silt Urban Renewal Authority. We've gone through an extensive budget review process over a course of several meetings. The spending plan itself shows revenues of just shy of $34.5 million. The total expenditures are $37,238,000. So we do have a bit of a deficit spending, but that is planned through our capital improvement functions. The majority of those funds for capital projects, of which the reserves of the town are more than adequate to meet those expenses. That does not preclude us from going out and acquiring additional grants, which we have some rather significant opportunities that will come next year that we didn't include in the budget this year. We've only included grants really that we've received at this point. We're not including anything that we haven't yet been awarded. And with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions if you'd like to ask any, or you'd like me to go through further in detail.
Any questions on any of the next three resolutions?
I don't
I
have.
think we've talked about it a bit.
For months.
Yeah.
A hot minute.
Okay.
It was nice to not be having executive sessions or not executive, but work sessions up to this day for this.
Who wants a work session on New Year's Eve? That would be no one.
All right, these all three are public hearings. Is there any way we can do all these in one public hearing, or do we have to do them each separately?
I'm pretty sure the lawyer's gonna say we gotta do them separately.
It'll only take you an extra 10 seconds.
Because we have such a large audience.
She could be here just for that, one of the three.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post, is it okay if I just go use the restroom real quick while we're doing this? Because I need a 3-minute break. Sorry.
Feel free.
We need you to vote, though.
We can carry on without you.
We need the vote.
We have enough.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
See, now plausible deniability on the budget.
She's stepping down. What just happened?
All right. Well, we will proceed. The time is now 8:25 p.m., and I will open up the public hearing for resolution number 41, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to resolution number 41?
No, sir.
All right.
No raised hands either.
Okay. Nope. Nothing from the chambers either. So the time is 8:25 p.m. and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 41, series 2024 as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion by trustee Hanrahan to approve resolution number 41, series 2024, seconded by trustee Seifert. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Seifert?
Aye.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt? She back yet? No.
Yeah.
Absent.
Trustee Klassen?
Yay.
Trustee Brentnall?
Aye.
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
I think she's on her way back in.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No, that was Nicole.
All right.
So I have six votes for aye.
All right. Motion passes 6-0 with one trustee abstaining from the vote or being absent.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 42, series 2024. A resolution to adopt the Silt Housing Authority budget for calendar year 2025 and appropriate funds. Manager Mann's already been over this, so do we have any questions?
None here.
No.
Resolution two.
All right. Then the time is 8:27 p.m. and I'll open up the public hearing for resolution number 42, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program, or any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item.
No, I did not hear from anyone.
All right.
Still no raised hands.
Doesn't raise hand. Okay. Still a no? Okay. The time is 8:27 p.m. and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion approving resolution number 42, series 2024, resolution to adopt the Silt Housing Authority budget for calendar year 2025 and appropriate funds.
Second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Clausen to approve resolution number 42, series 2024, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Seifert?
Aye.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt?
Aye.
Trustee Klassen?
Aye.
Trustee Brentnall?
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Motion passes unanimously. And next up, resolution number 43, series 2024, a resolution to adopt the Silt Urban Renewal Authority budget for calendar year 2025 and appropriate funds. Manager Mann's been over this one. Any discussion by the board?
No, sir.
All right. The time is 8:28 p.m. and I'll open the public hearing for resolution number 43, series 2024, Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir.
No raised hands.
And nothing from the public. Okay. All right. The time is 8:29 p.m. and I'll close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve Resolution 43, Series 2024 as presented.
Second.
Motion by trustee Seifert to approve resolution number 43, series 2024 as presented. We'll give that second to trustee Brittenall. Maybe have a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Seifert?
Aye.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt?
Aye.
Trustee Clausen?
Aye.
Trustee Brittenall?
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. And then next up is the first reading of ordinance number 12, series 2024. An ordinance of the Town of Silt, Colorado approving the sale of town-owned property located at 1535 River Frontage Road, which is unneeded for any governmental purpose. And I'll turn this over to Attorney Sawyer.
So, as the board is aware, the town has been in discussions with a potential purchaser of the Holiday Inn Hotel, which sits on town property, which was part of the former water treatment plant. The town has a long-term lease in place with the owner of the hotel, so the hotel improvements are owned separately from the land. The lease allows the owner of the hotel to operate the hotel and make what really is a token payment to the town in exchange for the right to have the hotel there. The owner, the proposed new owner, or the person desirous of purchasing the property would like to acquire, or the hotel would like to acquire the underlying property. As we discussed at the last board meeting, we have a contract that's been put in place. That contract provides for a subdivision of that property so that the river and the associated trail remain in town ownership, and the hotel and parking areas would be subdivided into a separate parcel and be conveyed to the new hotel owner. The contract is contingent upon the board passing an ordinance which declares that the property is not needed for a public purpose and authorizing the sale, because town ordinances need both noticing requirements and are not effective until a certain period of time after their second reading and passage. We wanted to get this in motion sooner as opposed to later. So the ordinance in front of you for review on first reading would allow, or would put in place the finding that the property is not needed for public use, and allow the buyer to continue on with the due diligence and other processes set forth in the contract, including the subdivision and moving toward a closing. In tandem with this ordinance, the next item is resolution number 44. That resolution would provide for the assignment of the existing lease to the new owner. So the new owner has a contract to close on the hotel by the end of the year. We obviously are not going to get through the contract periods, including a subdivision, to sell the land. So what this would do is would allow the buyer to close on the hotel for an interim period of probably 3-ish months while we work through the subdivision and other issues related to the land contract, and then they would close on the land at the time that those conditions have been fulfilled. But that's a separate item on your agenda. Just wanted you to understand how those fit together. happy to answer any questions.
Other questions?
I don't have any.
None here.
I guess, is there any repercussions that can happen down the road if we announce that this parcel of property is unneeded for governmental purpose, and then the sale does not happen?
We could change our mind later, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean,
Now.
I think that if someone else came to us, you know, let's say this particular sale falls through, and someone else came and said, oh, we would now like to buy the property under the hotel, probably because they've assumed the lease, we would have to go through another ordinance and another discussion. I don't believe nobody can force us to sell the property. And I don't believe that we are bound by any determination as to the public use going forward if this ordinance, you know, if the contract upon which this ordinance is premised were for some reason to fall through.
Okay. I guess I'm just, if we can't purchase land because of no, like, the pedestrian bridge. You know, I guess it's more down the road if something was, I don't know how to put this out. No one can get squatters' rights on this property down the road because the government didn't need it. There's nothing.
No, even with this finding, you'd still be protected by the doctrine that you can't adversely possess against the government because it's still owned by.
Okay.
So we can change our use case and it doesn't forfeit our ownership or rights within.
I don't, so if this contract were not to close, again, that this ordinance is based on, I don't believe that it changes your rights as the owner of that property at all.
Okay.
And so you said we're not bound by the determination, and my sort of silly way of saying it was we could just come back later and make a new ordinance that says we hereby declare that this is for public use, identified as such.
Yeah, or
And reestablish.
revoke the prior ordinance
Or
or
rescind
something.
our prior declaration or something along those lines. But I hear what Mayor Reichel's saying, like, are we waiving some kind of rights that we could potentially have as a, I mean, I get the question, I just.
So I don't believe, so under your charter, it requires you to make a finding that in order to sell it, as a prerequisite of sale, you have to make a finding that the property is not needed for public use. And that really is a prerequisite of selling public property, but it has no effect on the other protections that you as a government have as an owner of property.
Okay. So this contract doesn't go through. Someone else comes in to purchase the hotel, but they're not willing to give the right of way for the bike path. The path, they want to buy the whole thing. And we say, no, we won't sell you the property. They can't come back to this and say, you've already stated that it's not for governmental use.
We're basing it on the contract that we entered into to sell the real
Which
estate
protects
on
all those other
November
things.
25th, 2024, which that's dictatorial at this point.
Okay. Okay.
And you would not agree to a contract in the future if it didn't have those similar provisions in place.
Okay. All right. I know this was a 5-minute agenda item, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to Mayor Reichel's point from last meeting, all the easements to get to the walking path have been addressed on the contract, just as a
Yes,
follow-up.
we will be addressing those on the land subdivision,
Okay.
but it is written in the contract what the expectations are.
Okay.
But we added some language to the contract after our last meeting before it was signed, related to the mayor's concern.
Parking space. Okay. All right. This is another public hearing, so any further discussion by the board? All right. The time is 8:38 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing for the first reading of ordinance number 12, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir.
All right,
No raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
okay. Nothing from the public. Time is 8:39 PM, and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the first reading ordinance 12, series 2024 as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion by trustee Seifert to approve the first reading of ordinance number 12, series 2024 as presented. That was seconded by trustee Clausen. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Seifert?
Aye.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt?
Aye.
Trustee Clausen?
Aye.
Trustee Brittenall?
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. And then next up is resolution number 44, series 2024, a resolution of the town of Silt, Colorado approving the assignment of a lease for the town-owned property located at 1535 River Frontage Road. Turn this back over to attorney.
Yeah, so as previously mentioned, Mr. Gowdom, who's under contract to buy the hotel, he has a closing date that will happen prior to the ability to close on the land. And as such, for him to be able to buy the hotel, he needs to have an assignment of the lease in place to allow his ownership to continue on the town's land. So we have prepared a very routine assignment of lease form, and it essentially says that the current owner of the hotel assigns its interest in the lease to Mr. Gautam, and that the town consents to that assignment. So it's kind of a three-way agreement that gets the content of the lease into the new buyer's hands.
Just allows them to sublease it, basically.
Well, no, they
So
actually step
just
into
take
the
it over.
shoes of the lessee. Yeah. Again, pretty standard document for this type of transaction.
And basically, the franchise won't accept his application if he has no lease on the property. And so we kind of would be shooting ourselves in the foot to not move forward with this as part of it, right?
The franchisor may have that interest. I think the bigger issue is that the bank will not allow him to go forward until, they won't give him money until it's clear he has the legal right to keep the hotel on the town's property. Yeah.
So same question. Contract doesn't go through.
Yeah.
The lease is now assigned to a individual that has no interest in the property or the hotel.
I would assume that the selling entity on the hotel will not sign this, and probably Mr. Gowdom, the buyer, will not sign this until the closing date and the money changes hands. So the town will execute this document in advance, provide it to the title company, but it won't be fully executed until the transaction's consummated.
Okay.
At closing.
At closing, yes.
Okay. This one is not a public hearing. So, would anyone like to make a motion or discuss this item?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 44, series 2024, wow, cannot talk, as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion by trustee Brittenall to approve resolution number 44, series 2024, as presented, seconded by trustee Engelhardt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next up is the first reading of ordinance number 13, series 2024, an ordinance of the town of Silt, Colorado, amending title 17, chapter 17.52, off-street parking of the Silt Municipal Code within the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado. This one is a public hearing, but we will turn it over to Director Centeno.
Alrighty. I know it's getting late, so I'm gonna be as quick as possible. Everybody knows that we're on a
code rewrite frenzy here. And one of the very first codes that we decided to rewrite was the off-street parking code. We have so many new developments coming in, we figured that this was one to expedite, even though we are gonna rewrite all of Title 16 and 17 with our housing needs assessment endeavor. This is one that we wanted to make sure was in place, and it's still, even though we're coming in front of you in December, it still wouldn't be active until mid-February. So there's still quite a ways out to make sure that this happens before all of our new developments come in. So there's some wording that was just cleaned up on page 1. And then we did add a couple of items to 17.52.020C, where we specified that vehicular access, that the street is the primary, the alley is secondary, and then we also added to D that it's a public or privately maintained street, that the required parking be accessible from. And then on page 2, we did specify, and this did go in front of town staff worked on it, and then it went in front of our code committee, and then it went in front of the planning and zoning commission. Now it's in front of the board of trustees. So we've had a lot of eyes on this and a lot of feedback, and one of the feedback items that we got from the code committee was to specify that the below or minimum requirements that will be rounded up when calculations are being determined, just to make sure that it was in writing, because some of the below off-street parking requirements are 1.5. And so if they end up with a half, we want to make sure that they know it's going to end up being a whole, rather than rounding down. So with the off-street parking requirements, we did clean up that we added accessory dwelling units. That wasn't something that was previously in our code. We did keep the 2 spaces per single family, and then we did add where there was going to be 2 spaces for a duplex. Some of the multifamily, we just reworded some of the verbiage and changed the studio or 1 bedroom to 1.5 spaces, the 2 bedroom to 2 spaces, and then the 3 or more to 2.5, with the thought process that multifamily is different than single family. Multifamily, you're trying to balance who all you may have in apartment complexes, or and there may be some apartments that have 1 car, and there may be some that have 2 or more. So it's with multifamily, it's all about trying to find that balance, and that's where we figured the best numbers were going to be. We did remove 4 or more and just added 3 or more, because chances that we're going to have multifamily that's going to have 4 or more bedrooms is very, very unlikely. And then as far as the commercial side of everything, we went through and took industrial norms and what other municipalities are doing, and we tried not to reinvent the wheel, and we just made sure that we were up to date with the times of what the current requirements are. We did add food trucks per the subcommittee that needed to be determined at the time of site plan review. That way we can have a little bit more control over what parking spaces are needed for what is supposed to be more temporary but could turn into more of a permanent use. And then on page 4, we did clean up the 17.52.070 with the parking area encroachment, reduction of spaces, request and occupancy changes. This one, I'm just gonna read it. So neither shall the existing off-street parking be encroached upon by buildings, storage of any use, nor shall the number of parking spaces be reduced without the submittal of a request and approval from the Director of Community Development. The request must be submitted with documentation justifying The reason for the reduction in parking, such as decreased floor area, change to occupancy classification, seating capacity, number of employees, or change in other factors controlling the regulation of the number of required off-street parking spaces. The Director of Community Development will determine if the request meets the requirements of this chapter and will issue an approval or denial based on the intent of this title. An appeal can be made to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So our goal with this was to create a little bit of flexibility, but then also have an appealing board that could be a final decision-making body, so that not just one person is making any final decisions if a no is a no. So what I've noticed more in the past few years is change of occupancy. So that's more with the commercial space coming in and saying, this used to be storage, now we want to have retail out of it. And so that's going to change the required parking spaces. Or sometimes taking that step back, that they're going to have less if they were retail and they're going to go to just storage. This code section will allow us a little bit of that flexibility to decrease or increase their required parking spaces. And then I did want to point out that I missed at the top of page 4. We did have commercial uses, but we also felt that it was necessary to say all other uses not listed will be determined at the time of site plan review. And we did put a minimum square footage that exceeds most of our minimum square footages at 400 square feet of gross floor space, just in case it's something that really doesn't need as much parking, if it was something more industrial. And then on the last page, we did clarify with the mixed uses that the mixed uses could be a combination of commercial and residential, or residential, so it can be combined commercial uses or residential and commercial uses. So if there's multiple commercial buildings in one location, it could be a mix of that, or what is more likely that we would have commercial on the bottom, residential on the top, and they'd have to meet the required parking for everything, all the different uses that the building or parcel has. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
So this pertains to new construction, right? Or I guess my question is, you take like the old restaurant by the motel, that's been just about everything. Every time it changes, does that change too with this then, or?
Yes. So the required parking spaces changes with every different use.
Yes, okay.
That one's a little difficult, and that's the one that we need the more flexibility on, because there's just not, it's already an established building, and for the square footage, there's just not enough parking there. So we have to get a little creative with what they can do there with the lack of parking. And so we do have to look at, that's why we rewrote this chapter, or this title in Title 17, is because we can't reactively go back and change what's already been done, but we can proactively go in and make sure that there's enough parking spaces for the future. We're gonna have to be flexible with what's existing, but we can require more for the future, so we don't end up in more situations like that.
Okay, that was my question, yeah, because I mean, that's been, like I say, changes all the time, so it's like, I didn't know if that changed every time then, so.
Yeah, yep, it does. Yeah, every occupancy change.
Is that something, if it opens up opportunities for us to look into the town, purchasing land for public space, public parking, to maybe have those discussions for businesses that are close to areas that we could see the need, that would have the potential for the town to step in somehow, get the knowledge base and see what can be done for that specific area?
Yes. Yeah, we can always work with applicants and work with different areas and try to figure out what can be done. We did have an application that came in for that parcel in particular that they had talked about busing people in when they were trying to do more of an event center. And they just, it has to be a business plan that's gonna work and that we're gonna be able to regulate. And so we're always open to working with people to try to figure out how to mitigate some of those issues. But it is also finding that balance of making sure that we can long-term, hold them accountable and regulate what it is that they're promising they're gonna do.
Thanks, Nicole.
I do have one question that's always, because we've been through this, I don't know if you were on the board when we looked at this before, many moons ago.
Awesome.
But section 17.52.020 D. So each required parking space shall be designed to afford access to a public or privately maintained street at all times, i.e. no stacking of spaces shall be allowed. So I've looked at this before as if you have a house, a single family residence, that has a 1-car garage, you now have to have a driveway that's 2 cars wide. Just doesn't make sense to me.
But that would be an existing non-conforming use. If you were to build a house, the requirement of the code is that they need to provide 2 off-street parking regardless.
But they can't be stacked.
They can't be stacked.
So if you're building a new house, we're requiring people to build a driveway.
Yeah.
That's 2 cars wide.
Or they're gonna have a driveway that's 40 feet long.
No, because then they'd
No,
be
because then
stacked.
they'd be stacked.
We don't allow. I
But
mean,
we don't have a 40-foot front yard in this town.
Well, yeah, no, that's,
we do have some long ones. I mean, I could stack 5 cars in my driveway.
And you can park tandem, you
Right.
just can't, to meet the code.
To meet the code.
You have to have 2 off-street parking spaces, and they don't have to necessarily be side by side. They can be spread out on each side of your lot, like some of the downtown areas. But
In new construction, we're not gonna allow them 2 street accesses, so you can't have a driveway here and a driveway
True.
yeah,
here. So it does make it be a double
But-
wide driveway for every house that gets built.
Yes, there has to be there has to be parking for 2 vehicles. How you choose to do that and not stack it, that's your prerogative.
I think I'm with the mayor on this. I think it's.
It only gives you one option. It's not,
I understand what you're saying, but the problem is, we don't have, in a lot of places, we don't have enough parking for the number of people that are living in units.
right.
The only way to provide that parking is to make sure that there are adequate parking spaces on the parcel.
and if we don't do that, we end up with situations like in our neighborhood where you drive through every night and there's vehicles parked in the middle of the darn road
Right.
behind parked cars because there's no parking. And, well, there's no parking that's nearby that they don't have to walk a little ways.
Yeah.
My question though is how does a rule against stacking help that situation? Or is the stacking, is that about a safety issue? I mean, what is that for?
If you have a lot that can fit 2 cars, so you don't have a garage at all, so you have a single car driveway
Yeah.
2 deep,
well, and a lot of that too, like I see where you're coming from. You spun it to be residential.
yeah.
I think she's doing more for
But
like apartment
commercial
complexes.
is more
commercial,
where
yeah.
it's questionable or multifamily.
So, we could change it to say, i.e. no stacking of spaces shall be allowed in any non-residential zoning district.
That makes more sense to me because if it's a residence, everyone can sort of agree. I don't know.
In theory.
In theory, because
Sure.
the other side of that is you have a driveway that's only 1 car wide, but it's 2 deep, but you still only park 1 car in your driveway and 1 car in the street.
Because
So
they're
in
not
a
gonna,
sense, you're
they're
taking
not
up-
gonna be using the 2
Because then you're
spaces.
taking up 3 spaces instead of 2.
Or it's too deep for a Prius, and you have a 19-foot pickup truck, maxi cab, and you have 2 of them, so now you're sticking out into the road as a default. I think vehicles are getting bigger, parking spaces aren't, right? Just to
Yeah.
offer another counter, and when I look around our community, I don't see a lot of Priuses. Just saying. I'm not judging
But-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
gonna
we
drive
did have an applicant, or we had an application come in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission
Over on Ninth
a
Street.
few months
Yeah.
ago over on 9th Street that was residential, and it's a landlocked parcel, and that no stacking was in our code is actually what gave us the ability to say, no, this isn't safe, because car number 5 was blocked by car number 6, and there's no ability for car number 5 to go anywhere. So if there was an emergency, car number 6 would have to move, and they're two different apartment complex, like it's two different.
And this, where if it was a single-family home, then maybe stacking could be different. I think is what you're talking about more, I think.
I think there's maybe a 1 in 1,000 opportunity that stacking would make sense.
Well, I mean, even on my comment with non-residential, that opens it up to all residential, which would include multiple
Multifamily,
family,
yeah.
which is something we don't want.
Right.
So I think if you're going to allow any stacking, it would be purely single-family
homes.
residential.
Yeah.
And I
mean,
guess
my
that was
driveway,
the
I could
only-
put 8
Yeah.
vehicles in mine.
Yeah, that was
My
the
driveway's
situation I was thinking
but
of.
70 feet long. I mean,
But
I
how-
got 5 lots, so I can put,
But how many more of those will there be?
that's what I mean, there's. I
Right,
think
this
there's
is
only
kind of a
like 8 or-
forward-looking policy.
There's only like 8 lots that size in town, so.
But if you have like, I mean, some people, they have a single-family home and there's 4 vehicles, and so they double stack in there for efficiency purposes, so they're not parking on the street. So if we prohibit that in that
Well, and
context, I'm concerned that that would make our parking issues worse.
We're not prohibiting stacking as far as like, that's not prohibited. They can park however they want on their driveway. It just doesn't count as the parking spaces for the code. You can, so you,
It's trying to be preventative. We don't want to facilitate that kind of stacking.
because what you have is you have a developer come in and go, I'm gonna take this space and make it 12 parking spaces. There's 4, 4, and 4, all stacked in a square. But this car that's here now can't get out unless 3 other cars move. And that doesn't work.
Well, and I guess also like the end user, because I've never had anybody question the no stacked parking. But I guess as the end user, if we allowed it in residential and developers came in and did a skinny long driveway and did stacked parking, would the end user come then and be upset that once their car's pulled in and their husband gets home or their wife gets home or whoever, and then they're blocked in, that they wouldn't be upset, like, why did the town let them stack it this way? I don't know. I mean, I've never had anybody question it before, so it hasn't been an issue up to this point.
I have a stacked driveway on my house.
Yeah.
I mean, on the other flip side of this is I am all in favor of making people have more parking spaces. So, I mean, I'm even looking at a single-family home is only required to have 2. You could have a 6-bedroom, single-family home and require 2 parking spots.
Yeah.
And then they end
The
up with.
theory is that there's gonna be a garage that's gonna at least have 2.
Have two, right.
So
Or
that's
they're gonna
4.
have
There's 4, yeah.
At least 4.
driveway, a
Right,
house
right.
of that size is gonna have a driveway space. They're gonna be able to stack and do what you do, where you park 5
Everything that we
vehicles
have
in
in the-
your
yeah.
driveway.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I get kind of concerned about is like, I don't want to chill development, so make it unreasonably difficult for someone to build, you know? If that's doubling the price of their driveway and decreasing the size of their yard, you know, but if this is all based on what the code writing gurus say, then that's.
The difficulty is, we know that we have approved some multiple family developments that are not going to have enough parking. And in that area, there's no on-street parking. So where do they go? Do they go to the subdivision across the street and start parking there? Which, it's kind of kicking the can to somebody else as a problem. And that's, I think the bottom line is our code is written in a certain way, and any developer is going to utilize the code to maximize their ability to make money on a development. And so if we don't have more parking requirements, they'll get to build more units on, we have to balance that out. I mean, we had one developer tell us, well, if you want something different in the code, you've got to write it that way. We're gonna design for the minimum.
And frankly, I'm not concerned about them. I'm concerned about the single-family home builder who needs to have this driveway that's humongous, or, you know, but at the same time, I think it's just kind of exploring it. I'm not really
Your
against or
example
for
of the
it.
six-bedroom house is perfect, but if I'm, if it's a couple and they have 4 kids under the age of 10, it's 2 cars, maybe 3. When all those 4 kids are 16, now you've got a used car lot sitting there.
Yep.
You lived that.
I live it.
Exhibit A.
Not past tense.
You're living that.
They'll be in here asking for permission to double stack their cars.
Well, and that's the thing is they can stack all they want. We're not saying you can't stack it. It just doesn't count as a parking space.
They'll put that as a prerequisite to getting approval.
The chief's not out writing a ticket because you have 2 cars stacked in your driveway.
It's, right, okay.
Now, you could come and write tickets to people parked in the middle of the street on my neighborhood and I would not be upset.
Well, and I don't want it to impose rules on people that we shouldn't be imposing or burdening people, that it's going to actually deter people from which it doesn't sound like it's going to do those things, but.
No, but you can always go and request from the Director of Community Development some sort of change.
Right.
And if the director says no, for example, you can still go to the Planning and Zoning Commission to appeal. So
I
there is a
absolutely
way.
guarantee you that if you were to if you adopt this code as this proposal as it's written, you will have a developer in here complaining about the burden.
Yeah.
Rather quickly.
Well, it doesn't matter how we pass it. They're going to complain. Somebody will.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the checks and balances we need to have, is
Yep.
we need to raise the bar a little bit with the ability to make exceptions and have an appeal process. So those exception use cases can be dealt with and handled in a reasonable way, to the benefit of all parties optimally.
Yeah.
But without this, we don't have that. And again, they build to the minimum, we're simply raising the minimum.
Holding them to that standard. I just wouldn't want to hold the average Joe to the same standard and not differentiate and then accidentally, put some enormous burden on them, but just a thought.
At the end of the day, I will be voting for this as it is, written with no changes.
30 minutes later, thanks.
We're here to discuss this. Okay, any further discussion? This is a public hearing.
You ran off the member of the public.
I did. All right, then the time is 9:06 PM and I will open up the public hearing for ordinance number 13, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item.
No, sir.
Okay,
No raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
all right. And we have nobody left from the public, so. 9:06 PM and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the board approve the first reading of ordinance number 13, series 2024, as indicated.
I'll second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan to approve the first reading of ordinance number 13, series 2024, as presented, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All is in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Appointments to the Urban Renewal Authority Board. Turns over to Manager Mann.
Okay. You heard the spiel earlier this evening about the Urban Renewal Authority and compliance with new state statutes that, if I recall correctly, was 2016. The Urban Renewal Authority was created much prior to that, so it doesn't include the new statutory language. You have 2 options. If you don't want to appoint yourselves, the 7 of you, to sit on the Urban Renewal Authority Board, you have to appoint 10 members of the community. Plus, there will be somebody from the Board of County Commissioners, Board of Education, and somebody from a special district. If you do want to appoint yourselves, you appoint the 7 of you, plus 1 additional, because we have to have an odd number, and with the Board of County Commissioners, the school district, and special district, without appointing 1 more person, it would be 10. So it's up to you as a board of whether you would like to appoint yourselves and one additional person, or whether you would like to find 10 individuals from the community that are development-minded that would be interested.
I think it's prudent that we appoint ourselves because that could be a challenge.
We used to. And then in meetings, we used to just switch over between.
Yeah, that's what we'd be doing.
Yeah, during the meetings, and then we change from board members to commissioners.
Commissioners, yeah.
That's what we used to do.
So the odd member that we have to appoint can be anybody that's a citizen of the town of Silt.
Correct.
Over the age of 18.
Yes.
Or a staff member.
I was gonna say, it can't be one of you guys.
I'm not sure you would want to appoint a staff member.
Okay.
Set a staff member.
What?
Set a staff member.
Urban Renewal Authority, well, maybe there's somebody that if we think.
It could be a
about it,
P and Z
be
person, somebody from P and Z or something like that, could it not?
In theory, it could be a P and Z person.
Okay.
So might ask them for a volunteer,
Yeah.
if someone would like to.
Michael. Michael would
Okay,
be a
yeah.
strong
You
candidate
demonstrated
Yeah.
interesting, yeah.
because of his familiarity with a lot of the issues.
Well, and I think, from members of the P and Z, I mean, any one of them could be, could be
Yeah.
a valuable member.
Yeah.
Or it could be somebody from outside the community. We could start with somebody from P and Z if there are volunteers.
I say we see if there wants to be a volunteer from P and Z.
Yep.
Yeah, appointing board members seems far easier. I mean,
And I was planning on having the Urban Renewal Authority bylaws down here, but I never got to my office today. Somebody scheduled a meeting for me this afternoon.
Somebody didn't accept it.
I never got it, trust me. But anyway, you don't need to hear our bickering. But there will need to be some changes to the Urban Renewal Authority bylaws to become this, I think it's 1348 compliant. And that's part of the process that Downtown Colorado, Inc. will walk us through.
Sounds good.
Okay.
But we'll go ahead and start the process to have you all appointed plus one.
Okay. Easy enough. That's it on that?
Yes.
Okay. October, November 2024 financial report. Treasurer Tucker, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so I'm gonna give you a little information before I start the financials. With Mine Springs, they were asking for $2,000 because of our opioid settlement monies that we have received. So far to date, we've received a little over $3,500. And so we have to give that for opioid management of some sort. So I was just going to let you know that it would be more than the $2,000 that they were asking for, because we have to obligate it for resolution of opioid use.
Am I incorrect in that opioid use is a separate line item that is given to them?
No, what we have committed is that what we get in opioid settlements will go to them.
Okay.
So it's not in addition to. So like last year, we gave them $2,000, but we'd only gotten $1,700. So the town pitched in that additional $300.
We made the difference.
Yeah.
so if it's $10,000, we'd have to give that to them?
Yes.
Theoretically?
Or we'd have to come up with some kind of program to combat opioid use.
Okay.
And so I think it's better use of the funds to give it to someone that already has those
Skills.
skills. Thank you. My brain stopped working. So just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
So October, do you have any questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So October and November's financials are in the packet. But I think I'll just do November's because they encompass October instead of you having to hear the same thing twice, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So with November, 92% of the year has passed. We are doing really well with sales tax. I will kind of separate October and November's sales tax. October, so far this year, we've kind of been flat with our sales tax. October, we got up to 2% over where we had been the previous year. And in November, we were up 5.2%. So we are increasingly doing better in sales tax. As you can see, about 18,000 more in the month of October and 43,000 more in the month of November. We are at 107% of what we anticipated getting in sales tax. Use tax, we're almost at 140%. We are above where we thought we would be for trash, water, wastewater, and irrigation, so we're doing well with all of those. Revenues, we are staying right around where we had budgeted for. The beautification fund, we are a little over on that. I'm going to research and see if any of those expenditures are something that should have been placed somewhere else and maybe just got miscoded. If not, then I will be bringing you a supplemental for that whenever I present December's financials to you. Other than that, we're doing really well, I think, as far as revenues and expenditures and where we thought we were going to be at this time of the year. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
I'm just going to point out that 4 of the 5 highest months of sales tax revenue occurred in the last 4 months.
Definitely an upward trend.
Yes.
Very apparent.
I guess just in November, we didn't have a mistake like we did back in '21 where we got someone else's sales tax.
No, I've been keeping an eye on that since, and when I think it was back in like 13 or 14 where we had gotten 300,000 that we had to pay back when Pam was here. And so when I remember that happening, and so I've really tried to keep an eye on any large deposits, which was the October back in 2020 that we had to repay in 2021, is because I had brought it to the state's attention saying, this isn't in city limits. Someone had classified it as being within city limits, but it wasn't. So
Okay.
I've tried to keep an eye on that so that we don't get ourselves in that same situation again.
Awesome. Okay. Looks like a strong end of the year.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Manager and staff reports.
The only thing I'll add to my report this week is that on Thursday morning, we have a meeting with CDOT to discuss how they're going to calculate impacts, transportation impacts. Because every development south of the interstate is fronting on CDOT right-of-way, CDOT is going to likely ask for contributions towards the improvement of the I-70 interchange.
I'm not surprised.
And we need to, and the whole purpose of the meeting is so that we have a better understanding of what these expectations are going to be so that we can help communicate. Because I asked a question today of a developer. I I'm not sure they understand that just because they got permits doesn't mean that they're not going to be required to contribute to other improvements. And I don't want to sink a development because they're not aware. And I don't want that to become something that then the developer comes to the town asking for help.
Don't have that money. That's why CDOT's asking for it from there.
Yeah. So with that, that's the only thing I was going to add on top of anything.
Okay. Anything else?
Finish on a good note.
Nothing?
No update on the Shop of the
We
Cop
got new
event?
windows started in town hall today.
Two.
I was going to leave that to the chief if he's still around. We'll see if there's like the door opens shortly. If not, go.
Boots come clicking?
I'll mention it at the end.
Okay.
Here he comes.
Yeah, I hear the door.
Your door squeak.
He's gonna be rubbing his eyes when he walks in the door.
There he is. Man of the hour.
We've had quite a few contributions for our Shop of the Cop this year. Exact number I've not heard yet, but that's going to happen the morning of the 15th. And I'm not sure how many kids we've got sponsored yet. We still have donations coming in, so that's why that number is still up in the air. But I think the last count was right around $16,000 or $17,000.
Which, given an average of $200, I think they estimated per kid, that's a lot of kids getting help this Christmas. And which of the officers was largely responsible for driving
The
this?
Officer Portwood, one of our new rookies, and he took the project and ran with it. Better than we've ever seen with anybody else, so.
He owns it now.
Yeah.
He's stuck with it. He did so good.
It's
Keep
his.
it.
Wow, that's 80 students.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a great program, and I think, officers done a great job kind of grabbing people and getting them to contribute.
That's a big number for a small community to donate. I mean, it's a great cause, don't get me wrong, but it's a
We're gonna take
tribute.
the kids down to Dollar General and stuff so that the sales tax stays in sale. I realize that's not feasible, but.
Or use Walmart.com. E-shop with a cop.
E-shop with the cop.
E-shop with a cop.
There you go.
Oh, it
They just do it all on
rhymes.
Amazon even. Ship it right to their house.
No, it's a great fundraising effort, and thanks to Officer Portwood for all his. Full disclosure, I had sent an email earlier about acknowledging him tonight because I stopped by Town Hall last week and grilled him with questions and stuff, and he was still enthusiastic even after talking with me, which is saying something. He worked really hard on it this year. I think the whole team did as well. I know some other officers participated in generating some donations, so I think it's a tribute to the whole police force that they were able to pull this off in addition to their regular job. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Anything else you want to update us while you're here? How are the tampering with flock cameras going?
Oh, hey, that's even a better one. Did you want to explain that one, or you want me to just dive in on that?
We've had one of the cameras stolen. They literally took a piece of equipment out and cut it off at the base. Flock's been back out. Taking some measures, again, trying to curb this behavior. Working with Flock and their technicians, we've hopefully come up with a solution. This has kind of been a rarity throughout the country that have the cameras tampered with, even stolen. So they're now seeing something that they need to work on with tracking and some other precautions for these.
we're first in something.
We are hoping to have the check back from the reimbursement check for the system by the end of the year. The person who's in charge of doing the checks retired and didn't pass along the knowledge, so it's been trial by error. So we're hoping to have that money before the end of the year.
Okay. Has anybody that's been tampering with them been caught?
No.
Okay.
Get those little Apple eye tags, stick them in there so the one that got stolen, you can follow it.
So it's been an adventure at best.
What are they gonna do with them? I mean, you gotta have a stepladder and tools to take it down. What are they gonna do with it? I mean, it's not something they can hook up.
They took a power tool and cut it off at the base, took the pole and everything.
They just took everything.
Efficiency.
You can't do anything with them. The software is hard-coded to the hardware. You can't repurpose it for anything. You might be able to part it out, but those parts are worth pennies.
There's some folks in town that don't want what they're doing out into the public. And with these picking up stolen vehicles and that type of thing, that's what these do. They pick up stolen vehicles among other things, so.
Okay. Wow.
I'm glad we can help them learn about safety protocol for the flock cameras, you know.
Little did they know when they came to Silt, now 4,500 people.
Like,
Metropolis of Silt.
Yeah, they're gonna wish
Yeah.
they never came here.
got some creative folks, I guess,
Yeah.
or something, I don't know.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Any other questions?
No. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, if we got nothing else, update from the board and board comments. Trustee Poston?
I'll keep it short and sweet. It's the last meeting of the year, so I want to say thank you to everyone, the staff and the board members. I'm very, very excited about the upcoming projects that the town has in the works for next year. Potential development of pedestrian bridge, potential development of a plaza. We have great opportunities for businesses to come into town and have a conversation with our town developer and our board. We are very receptive and we are open for business. I want to say thank you to all the town citizens. And it's beautiful and great to be out there in the community event. So anytime that you can, please come on out and help support the town. And you got to get out, meet people, see people face to face, and have a good time. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Trustee Engelhardt?
Thank you. Somebody pointed out to me actually that there is no street sign at all at the intersection of 16th and Grand. And they asked that I point that out here.
No street sign?
There's
Oh.
no sign indicating what street you're at.
Street names?
And we're growing. I think we deserve it.
Okay, I will check that out. and get
It's on
that.
somebody's bedroom wall, right? I mean, it just is.
Maybe they
I think
still,
it's probably with the flock.
I was just saying, sitting next to the
Yes.
flock camera.
you will get
Now
caught.
you know where they live.
If you steal our street signs, you will get caught. I'm saying that to the camera. Sorry. Oh, and then so wonderful community events here as always for Silt. But then one thing that happened over the weekend that happens in this valley pretty regularly is this Concerts for Symphony in the Valley. And they don't play in Silt, but they play in Rifle, they play in Glenwood. And so I know we just ratified the budget, but I think maybe it's something worth considering that maybe we support them. I consider it a huge cultural asset to the community. It's something that we don't have. They just did 4 shows in Rifle. Every year they have to add more shows, and it sells out at the youth theater because people love it. The response is huge. And I know people, I'm driving from Silt. I know there are other people in the community who are probably benefiting from that. They do 4th of July show in the summer. They do Mother's Day shows. They do the Nutcracker with the live dancers. They're really doing some great things. So it's something I wanted to point out that I really care about. And full disclosure, I don't know if this is a conflict of interest, but my mother has played in the symphony for a really long time. It's pretty adorable. So I have that tie to it, but she doesn't get paid or anything. It's just something that she does for fun. So, I mean, I have that connection to it through family, but I would like to think that I would still really support it. And I just wanted to point out that that's a really great service to our
What
community.
kind of space do they need?
You know,
Just maybe an outdoor thing at some point in the summertime.
they could
Elementary
play
school?
at the pavilion too, but the
Yeah.
other thing too is they take like small donations, and you can be a, different tier of a member, and you're featured on the program. So we could be listed as a donor, Town of Silt, on the program every year, get shout outs and stuff like that. And it could be a small contribution. But then, we as a community know that we're contributing to something that, they have school-age kids who are working on scholarships. It's a really great program. If you guys have never been to a show, I recommend it for sure. So that's all I have.
Trustee Britton.
Just echo, it's a great year. It's a privilege and honor to serve on this board and work with everybody here. Sometimes we don't always agree on everything, but that's important that we don't agree on everything all the time, because if we did, then things would just get rubber stamped through and it wouldn't be what it is. I appreciate the fact that we all conduct ourselves appropriately and strive to do that. So just thank you for everybody that is on the board and for all the town employees and everybody, and have a happy new year and all that good stuff.
All right. Trustee Clausen.
Just keep it short and sweet. Just wanted to say thank you to all the citizens. Thank you to the staff, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and that's it.
Okay.
I got a couple of things. One, this here was my idea because I had no idea who was what and where anymore.
Great idea. I loved it.
So I asked Sheila to print this off because I couldn't remember who was what and where, and I just thought, once in a while, just kind of, who's what. But we did have a meeting last Thursday with the Garfield County, the Energy Advisory Board, and I am going to point out that starting in 25 Garfield County with the gas and oil, there's going to be some major changes for people listening to of the water resource. They're kind of taking it more serious, what's going to happen, recycling water, because it's such a commodity. They're pushing more and more to reuse water instead of new water every time they do something. So that's kind of what that pipeline up Mam Creek is going to be kind of about. It's going to save a lot of trucking, because that pipeline is going to pipe a lot of water to where they can recycle it. And that's one of the big things that's coming up that's going to save a lot of water. So I think that's real important. I just passed that along. It's such a commodity, and they're trying to recycle the water now instead of every time getting another truck of water to frack with. So then there's some other things coming down that's going to move things to like 5 miles from water resources and stuff too. So like I say, we hadn't had one in 6 months, but this was a pretty interesting meeting Thursday night. So
Okay.
that's all I got.
All right.
So I had an opportunity, I was invited last week to meet with the Rislinda and Page West development and construction teams. I met with them on site earlier today. I notified Jim about it, perhaps a little late, but you were in the woods. And Nicole and I talked about it briefly last week. It was a good opportunity to just communicate outside of this space with the developer and just have a more frank conversation. And they had some updated diagrams and stuff, and I was able to visualize what they're proposing for the space. I also asked them, and they agreed near the end of the meeting, to give all of you a chance to also get out there. So they're going to be reaching out to you so you can just walk it with them and better understand. When I see it in drawings, it's tough for me to interpret. But when I'm standing there with them and some of the designers and developers, they can say, this is going here, this is going there. We talked about various things. But I appreciate them giving me the opportunity to meet with them, and again, look forward to all of you having a chance as well. Hopefully more developers will get into that mindset. And that's it for me.
All right. I missed the Christmas tree lighting, so I was working, but the fireworks from my house were beautiful. Got home just in time to see those. So I could hear people cheering, so I assume we had a good turnout.
We did. Yeah, it went really well. A little chilly, but it went.
A little chilly went well. Nice.
I was gonna say, despite the weather.
Yeah, no.
It would have just snowed the whole day, it'd been better. The rain actually made it worse.
It did, yeah. Yep. It was pretty cold, but Pro Tem Hanrahan did an amazing job with the countdown and.
I have the video if you want to see it.
Santa and the Grinch. That's what it's all about. If you show up with them, you just shut up and get out of the way.
And then I got nothing, so the next item is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by trustee Brittenell. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right,
Everybody
thank
have
you,
a
everyone.
wonderful little break here.
I assume they're not-